But that's a coward move. I guess you got me figured out. I know you never listen. You told me, God, oh, again. I know that it's hard to forget. To be honest,
what? Stormzy! Yeah, this week's episode of Talking Business brought to you by Stormzy. Lessons, what a tune. Welcome back to Talking Business on YouTube. Talking Business is my podcast where I share what I'm thinking, how I'm feeling as I run my company Sanctus. Upload episodes on Spotify and on iTunes, and then I've started trying to upload the recording onto YouTube here as well. And sometimes I bring on guest friends to talk business with as well. And in this episode, I'm joined again by my best mate, co-founder James Routledge. And following on from last week's episode, we are talking about the big update of James stepping down as Sanctus CEO. And since last week, after sharing it publicly, there's been obviously been a big response on social media, on his newsletter, and I'm talking to him about how that feels, how that response felt, how it feels with both of us, and how he's feeling different actually from this time last week and what that means for us both. So it's part 2. Hope you enjoy, and I really enjoyed this conversation, so let's get stuck in. Boom. Your energy is different to last week.
Yeah.
Right now it is.
Yeah.
Is that, I'm just noticing that.
Last week I was still quite raw, I think. And like a lot of the questions you were asking me, it was the first time I'd been asked them, I think. Like put on the spot with them, definitely, about the whole sort of letting go, stepping down as CEO, just my mental health, basically, for the last 2 years, I think. I keep expanding out the period of time now. And I think I'm just bearing less of that burden, mate. Like I've, sharing that story. I think I shared it in my newsletter, which has got a pretty engaged following, and then I shared it on LinkedIn as well. And I wrote a part 2, which went out on my newsletter this morning, because I think there's more than just one story there. So I'm just getting it out. So I do just feel lighter, because I'm not having to hide this story. So it does feel really good. And just smiling again. Like I had a call with a founders group I'm in. We meet sort of once a month, and one of the founders on there in my tribe, she was just like, God, I haven't seen you smile for like a year. And I was like, fucking hell. I do feel a bit lighter, literally.
It's so nice. I feel exactly the same. Like I feel happy for you. Like it's nice to see you smile. I can feel the energy. It's nice. I wouldn't, maybe not a year, but definitely more recently seeing you. It's just really, it's nice for me as well to see you like that, because that's how I want you to be. I want you to be happy and smile and feel light. And I think last week it was kind of, I remember towards the end of the episode saying that it doesn't feel light yet. And it's worth for people that are maybe joining us now. So last week, the episode, we talked mainly around James's update, stepping down as CEO at Sanctus, and talk through, I think on that day, pretty much, you'd shared a public update in the newsletter, publicly on LinkedIn. We recorded an episode and published that. I think we've had a few hundred people listen to that. And then since then, I was just reading in your update today. So in the last week, that post and that update of you stepping down as CEO, you've written has had 1,000+ reactions, 75+ comments, but 90,000 views, which it's just a lot of people. So I think my first thing I wanted to ask you, and you kind of touched on it there, is how did it feel? How did it feel getting that response? Did you expect that response? And just maybe some of the messages you've had as well. How's it felt?
Yeah, it's been, I'm just looking on it now. Yeah, it's had 1,174 reactions, 87 comments, and 100,000 views, which is Yeah, it is a lot. I mean, I've got an engaged LinkedIn following, but I'm no sort of Steve Bartlett or Gary Vee. So that amount of like, yeah, response is still pretty new for me. Like I get it every now and again. Like I'll write something that pops, but not consistently. Good, mate. Good. It feels great. You know, it's like it's a relief for me to just kind of, again, and I've had this before, just being like, look, this is me. Like this has been my experience. Don't feel like I have to hide something, because I think for a long time, you know, like I felt really. I said this last week, but I felt really embarrassed about feeling bad. It's got such a sick life, sick business, all that. So I felt bad about feeling bad. And like I felt online, like I always had to sort of be, yeah, if I sort, as the CEO, if I said like, oh, I'm feeling down, then I was like signaling something really bad about Sanctus. So yeah, so and actually being honest on social media is just a big thing for me. It's actually a big part of my life. So yeah, so being able to do that feels really good. And then the fact that also there are just a load of people who clearly feel the same or have felt the same and are resonating and just getting value from me saying that, it also is just an added bonus, really. I'd be lying if I said I wrote it for that, because I didn't. It was that's my story. But yeah, and also loads of people that aren't founders and stuff, just people like, you know, I think one of the guys who commented I was really interested by is he's in the law profession, and like laws are very sort of hierarchical, like step by step career progression. I think his comment was just a bit like, yeah, you know, don't really fancy it. Don't really fancy the next stage. So yeah, it's just really cool. And really familiar actually from the blog post that started Sanctus, the mental health and startups one. So yeah, feeling good and just enjoying the benefit now. I think like it's as if it's a bit of a ripple of what comes off it. So yeah, good, really good.
And that was going to be the second question I asked you, because you've obviously had other newsletters, posts that have banged, and you know you had 100,000 views, or maybe thousands of views. But you did say to me that this post feels, although it's has had a good response, the feeling is the same or similar to pretty much the very first ever post that you did, which was Mental Health in Startups 2015, 2016. Which really started Sanctus. So I just wanted to know, what is that feeling?
Yeah, it's definitely relief, and also just the joy of being able to be like, this is just me, like, because to be honest, mate, it's the same thing. It's exactly the same thing. Like if I look at my experience of me and you building Match Chat together, and the story I've told for a long time is one of, you know, kind of losing sight of myself, having to put on a bit of a mask, play a bit, you know, be a certain way, and then my mental health being really affected, and then coming out. And that's what that first Mental Health and Starters post was. But to be honest, mate, it's the same again. Literally, it's just like carbon copy. It's like, you know, feeling like I had to be a certain way, feeling like I had to be a certain person, pushing different parts of myself down, not talking to anyone, not opening up, and then boom, you know, and a lot of and the suffering, really. And I think again that's why, yeah, that's why the relief feels the same, but it's just the context is different, really. It's the same story with different, you know, different figures, different business, different people, and I feel like this one is more, yeah, just different, slightly different nuances around leadership. We've actually got a fucking good business this time. I suppose the last one was a bag of, was nothing, you know, and it was a failure story. Whereas this is like a, you know, we've got something, you know, we've got a great business, mate, that works. So yeah, it's a different story basically, but a really similar one. Yeah, So it's just it's a bit of elation, really, of being like, yeah, this is me.
And so that makes sense. I think what I'm interested in, like the other posts that you've done before this post on, that are banged on LinkedIn and had loads of views. Would you say, is it fair to say that you weren't fully honest in those posts, or was there a kind of a sprinkle of the truth in there?
No, I think I was definitely honest. I think something I've like been reflecting on a lot is in the first stages of like my mental health journey. What I did a lot of was, so like I'd been one way, or like one side of myself was really prominent. So when I was like 24, 25, and you'll know this, very boisterous, proper like laddie, a bit macho, alpha, actually on the inside deeply insecure and quite fragile, but that's portrayed as like a front. And all the behaviours associated with that, which is like nights out, drinking, da 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 da. So then when I did the big coming out thing, I just sacked all that off. I was like, that's bad, and this is the real me. This is the true me. And which is just rubbish. Because again, it's the same trick. It's like, well, okay, so that's not me. So then you just repressing other sides of myself. So I just end up, it's just the same cycle again. So like, yeah, in the last year, like I have written things and I've shared things that have really resonated and I've been honest. And that was me too. It's like, it's just that over a period of time, there have been certain parts of myself which has been much more prominent, and I feel like I've had to push down others. So it's not that I was being fake or anything.
It wasn't the full truth. Obviously, it was honest. But in the kind of context of your life, those kind of updates, the last few months, the last year or so, they've been honest and true. But below that has been this post, this feeling, this truth, which
100%.
For me feels like, I feel like you've hit the bottom. There's no more, knowing you as well as I do, there's no more truth. Like you've gone right to the bottom, which is what you did back then as well.
Yeah. Yeah, well, mate, the last 2 years, I've not been doing much. I've been doing the odd LinkedIn post and that, but I've been doing a bit of public speaking recently. I've not done anything for 18 months before this. Really? Like, newsletters, they've been so sporadic. Bless anyone who's on my newsletter. It's like every single one's like, I've got more to say, but I can't yet. So, I've not been... Yeah, it's funny because I've been looking back. I've been losing track of time and stuff. I've been like, looking back, I'm like, wait there, was that 2018 or was that 2019? It's like such a long period of time that just, fleshes into one.
But I can imagine that's so hard because you know that about yourself, it must feel inauthentic, or must feel, that's what I think, that's the point I'm trying to get to. It must feel inauthentic knowing that you've got this truth that you can't quite share yet, because you weren't in a position to talk about it yet, because we hadn't gone through the practicalities internally as a company, as a team, of like what that means for us. So you couldn't share, or it didn't feel like you could share everything that was going on for you, which must have been difficult. I think that's what I'm trying to get to.
Well, yeah, especially when the business is Sanctus, right? It's like, I can't remember if I said this last time, but our whole mission is like, be yourself, right? Like, express yourself, all of yourself. Don't have to share everything on social. We're not trying to encourage everyone to do that, but be honest, be open-hearted, and like, basically, I'm not enjoying my job, which is for me one of the biggest things in my life. So I couldn't say that, which is so out of brand. So that was killing me. Like, that was a real, it was painful, really, because I actually felt like I was doing a disservice to the brand at times. Like, I'm not giving everything because I don't feel like I can. So it feels good now, because my job is to be myself, because that's so in line with everything we're about, which feels absolutely bob on.
And like, can you describe, mate, I'm honestly asking these questions for my own benefit. I feel like I've always I do learn a lot from you. I feel like I'm not like, I feel like I've caught up with you. I genuinely do. A few years ago, I used to say I'm a step behind, or I feel like I'm up there with you now, but we're just kind of learning different things about ourselves at different times. That's how but it's still really interesting for me to ask you these questions because I don't know, I'm still curious, man. I'm still learning. But oh shit, I forgot.
Well, I feel like you went on this process before me though, so well, it was a bit weird because like I saw you in a role at Sanctus where you weren't yourself and you were really trapped, definitely, and had no way out, and you were just clinging onto everything, couldn't let go. So but like for me, it was I actually was in the position essentially of power to be able to like sort that out. So I was able to and like give you some direction. I think the really hard thing, the last like in this situation, was you had to like watch me burn a little bit, really. And, like you could support me as a mate, but like we had to wait and wait and wait and wait and be patient. So I feel like I saw you go through it really, and then I think I saw you just be more yourself in your job, and like and that mean that you were actually good at your job and being like, oh fuck, this is great, like that's where I want to get to. So I feel like I sort of saw it work for you really, especially now, especially in the last few months. I think it's like there's a real congruence, I think, between the role you're in and the place you found in Sanctus and just who you are, which for me is spot like that is the absolute sweet spot, because that's that dream of like, yeah, of course there's always going to be stuff you don't love doing, but mostly you can just show up and you can just be. And I think, well, from my perspective, you're pretty much there, or you're not far off being there. So that's been sick to see and been like aspirational, because I'm like, well, I want to get there.
Man, I didn't know. Yeah, I'd say it's like the alignment of like me discovering my purpose and then doing things and doing a lot of things that align massively to my purpose. So like day in, day out, I'm doing things that I'm good at. Like I feel like I'm born to do, and I'm working towards something I'm born to work towards. So yeah, no doubt it kind of then that feeds into all of my life really. It's like life just feels so much better. Yeah, and I think that was my other thing. Sorry, I feel like I've got a few questions, but this is my other one, was to describe, and maybe we can both try and do this, but to describe the feeling you've got now of almost like the lightness or the relief, or what it feels like to be yourself, to actually kind of accept or share how you're really feeling, even though that feeling, when I read this, your latest post, so you've written this an update a week later, I guess, to your newsletter, stepping down, not up, newsletter number 148, part 2, and you just talked about the shame, and there's so much shame, I guess, of like feeling like you didn't deserve to feel bad, and the heaviness of that, versus now you've shared that and it's out in the world, how different you feel a week later. Just share how that feels for people, because I can definitely share my experience a little bit, but I want to hear from you.
I think it might be a bit early for me to say, really. It's I think like I definitely had that initial relief of like opening up and sharing and telling a story, and just like, oh, like, okay, I can just be now, like I don't have to try, basically. It's not as exhilarating as it was the first time I did it, because the first time I was like, well, I've never done this, like in my whole life. I was just literally like, this is like a drug that I've just never taken. I was like, mental. Like, I can't believe you can live like this, because I'd spent years, school, whatever, like thinking, oh, I have to be on, like I have to, there's a certain way society or like needs me to be. So this time I felt more like, oh, I'm returning to that feeling that I know, like So I'm coming home a bit, I suppose. Yeah, I just think in general, I think I'm starting to feel just basics like actually having energy, smiling more, being more giving, like being more there for like Sarah, my mates, just more present, just a bit slower, being a bit more aware of how I'm sort of what I'm doing. Not like as if I'm in this constant meditation, but like sort of feeling a bit more in flow, like noticing like what I'm maybe drawn to that's like an old sort of pattern. Or yes, it's that's definitely the first thing I've noticed. And I mean it's been interesting / difficult this week, like coming back to work. Like I've entered the business again this week. So, and there's a natural pace of the business, I think, and a natural pace of, Chris, you, the team, just, it's up and running, right? Like there's a pace on it. So I've noticed there, like, okay, like there's a way I was and there's a way I want to be. And like, I'm still sort of choosing, I suppose, but more consciously, I think. Whereas before it was just unconscious, like I was just like on autopilot, just like there was only one way of being. Like, there was only one mode, whereas now I've flicked one mode off and I've flicked into another mode. So I'm like, okay, do I want to work on that project or that task? Is that just what I was doing before? Am I just working past 6-7 o'clock for no reason because I'm just in a tailspin? Yeah, so I feel a little bit more conscious, basically, of how I'm working.
I've got the newsletter up here. In it, you put, here's to stopping, here's to rest, here's to valuing health, happiness above all else. Here's to something new, a new way of being, a new way of living, more conscious, considered, honest. But then you put, I'll tell you when I get there, or more realistically, I'll tell you how I'm doing getting there. I like that.
Yeah, well, there's no getting there, is there? I mean, that's, yeah, it's just an absolute constant. And again, that's I think part of the trap was believing that there's a certain state that is good. There's a certain like mental health state, a sort of perfect Sanctus shaped state of the Sanctus leader. That's genuinely what I had in my mind. And it's like, I've got to be that, which is utter rubbish. Like that does not exist. Like there's a process, there's a way of being, but that's not an outcome. There's like a way of being, but there's not there's not like a defined fixed way. It's a process, not an outcome, basically. Like the goal isn't to be happy all the time, or to be sharing all the time, or to be calm all the time. Like that's what I was aiming for. Was like trying to put myself into this like box of like, I'm just constricting myself so much by doing that. And so I was, and then that's just not the goal. Like the goal might be to be curious. That might be a goal. It's like, okay, in each moment, I'm gonna try and be curious. I'm gonna try and be inquisitive. I'm gonna try and listen. But to say like, I am always going to be an inquisitive person. I am always going to be, I don't know. Like I feel like I was just creating an impossible standard for myself.
I feel like we've just dropped in. I feel like I'm taking a moment, if anyone's listening as well, to just take that in. You're making me think of myself, because it really resonates. I think I feel like what's shifted in me is like a deeper, it's not fully there, but a deep acceptance that like the things that made me feel heavy before and like tired and drained was that there was truth that I wasn't letting out, basically feelings that I had that weren't going anywhere. So I'd keep them in, not necessarily on social media in the way, you know, it's helped you, but just to you, even to you, people around me, to myself, just, and whether that's literally like anger, frustration, sadness, emotion, pain, just any of those, the hard feelings, the hard emotions go in, and then they'd stay in there and then get stuck. And then what I felt like recently, I don't know why, but as I've gone through those emotions, I've realized that I feel lighter. And then I felt like, I think I was scared of what it would mean, but at the end of the day, it just was what it was. There's nothing I can do about it. It's just in me, and that's how I feel. No matter how much I try and think my way out of it, that's how I feel. So just being, and whatever that is, like if I'm watching a film and it makes me really upset, just being upset, and that's it. There's nothing else. That's just it. And then accepting all of that emotion for what it is, and accepting all of that for like, that is just who I am. That is me. It just means I'm going off one here, but just constantly feel really connected to how I feel, and then actually express it no matter what. And then the feeling I've got is just, I mean, to you, to hear back from you, you're seeing me feeling purposeful and all that. That's all it is. That's all I'm doing. It's just expressing how I feel.
Yeah. Well, you're alive. Do you know what I mean? You're fully alive, like in life, like connected to whatever's going on the TV, or it's like you're like immersed in life, basically. It's funny talking about it on a podcast, because like I think one of the problems is, whether it's on a podcast or, is like trying to give an answer for people. And like I've been thinking about that a lot, because it's like I'll do a panel or I'll do like a talk or something. I always get a question like, you know, what's the one thing like people should do or people should take away? I'm like, stop fucking like trying to find the answer from like me or whoever else, because that's again what I was doing, like searching for that like ticket, like one thing that's just gonna fucking do it, rather than like what you're saying. I feel so drawn to, because it's just so real, like just taking whatever that is there in front of you and just immersing yourself into it, because it's so abstract, it's so meta, like it's so hard to pocket that up and give it as a pill or a book or whatever, but it's just so powerful.
Yeah, mate, that's so true. And I used to think, why does how I feel matter? Why does that? It's just it's irrelevant, really. Especially if it's a negative feeling. I used to be like, that's not going to get me anywhere. But it's the strongest indicator of whether what you're doing in that moment is right or wrong. Your gut, my feeling, my gut is like, it's just never wrong. So the more I listen to it, the more I trust it. When I read your newsletter, a lot of the reasons for why you couldn't, I mean, there's practical things, which I get.
Yeah.
You were stuck in practically, because we didn't have a Chris Slater to come in and be the replacement. So there's that. But a lot of it was in your head. What will people think? This isn't right. I feel ashamed about that. I feel judged about that. Like, but if you really just listen to it and let it go, like, I'm not happy. I'm not enjoying it. It just feels wrong. I don't know. The more comfortable I've got with just like, oh, this feels wrong, and just listening to that, or this feels great, I'm going to do more of that, and letting go of what that means, like the outcome, as you put it, like and just trusting that as a process, as you said, and that is the thing, rather than being a certain
mate. If I'd have been like fully like letting myself release, like being like completely authentic, mate, I'd have been writing, you know what I'm like, I would have been writing 6 a.m. emails to the entire company, just like, we need to do this tomorrow. Like, it would have just been but that is me. But obviously in a certain CEO role, that's not right. So like, but yeah, absolutely. And still, even now, like, I still don't even feel like I'm fully like letting myself release, because yeah, I mean, there's you know, there's deeply held beliefs. If that's too much, that's not, you know, you can't do that. That's, yeah, whatever. That's not what a founder of a business does, or it's too distracting, or you can't work on more than one thing at once. You need to be really focused, or all that sort of stuff. But yeah, they're thoughts at the end of the day. And they're beliefs, and they're there because I'm sure at some point in my life, probably when I was a child, or I fucking touched a hot radiator or something and burnt my finger, it's like, you know, that'll have served me well. But I'm, you know, I'm different. It's different. So yeah, and the energy, like you said, to hold those down is yeah, it's debilitating over time, and it's not fun. It's not like, yeah, it's not great. Well, I just find that then, like, you shut yourself off to not, say you're shutting yourself down in work. Say at work, I come in and I'm like, I have to be, I then end up being that person, like, with my mates or with Sarah or with my family. So yeah, it's tiring, like, changing from different gears. Yeah.
What do you think you're scared of now? I mean, that's a very open question. But if you feel like you've been, just to bring this in, you've texted me yesterday saying, I don't feel like I was fully truthful there. But I feel like I'm hitting the bottom of your truth and where you're really at. So what are you scared of if there's a little bit extra? Maybe, yeah, what is that?
Yeah. I think often when I reflect back, in a period of change or being like on the precipice of change, there's a fear of like what I'm letting go of. I think I've done a lot of that. But also there's a fear of who I'm becoming. So there's a fear of like, okay, if I'm on this growth often, I'm on the edge of this growth, like I'm at my edge of a transformation or an evolution, which we'll all go on in our lives constantly. But some can be more sort of profound, I think, than others, and like staggering, you know, like my first period of like real reinvention was definitely really big. It was like, fucking hell, I'll go from like being single, being the first guy on the team sheet for a night out to, you know, oh lads, I'm not drinking because I'm doing a flotation tank tomorrow morning, and like I'm madly in love and I can't stop writing my girlfriend love letters, you know, like that was really like really steep. So I think the fear is that it's like, oh God, like what's next on the cards, and not knowing, like I don't know. Yeah, there's that. I think it's like, who am I becoming, and whatever that form is, like, will I be able to do it? Like, am I good enough for that? All of that. Yeah, all of that really. I think that's probably what I'm afraid of. For example, this is the most honest thing I can say. If I continue to just like step into myself, or like, will I leave Sanctus? Will I leave? Will I just be like, oh, you know what, actually, I'm not passionate about mental health anymore. Like, fucking hell, mate. I'm like, you know, I keep doing this art. It's like, you know, it's like, will I realise I want to be an artist? Will I realise actually, you know, I don't fancy the stress of building a business. I fancy being a primary school teacher. Like, these are thoughts that go through my head. I don't know if any of them are real. Well, that's the point. I don't know. So that's the fear, because it's the fear of the unknown, of what I might become, what my life have in store for me, or because I just don't know, because it's completely new ground, isn't it? So that's the fear. That's what I'm afraid of. What will I become, basically?
Yeah, like that example I was going to use, like, as you start to, if you really let it go and start to really listen to what makes you feel good, it, you know, you're creating art at the minute and you're loving that, and it's like you're drawn to that, you feel good when you do it, so you should do more of it. Whereas if you, let's say, coming back into Sanctus in a business doesn't feel as good as it used to, but you feel really good about art. Like what I was just saying 5 minutes ago was keep doing the art, keep following that, do more of that. But I guess, yeah, you are right. That means a lot of change if you think about it too much. If you think about
if you think about it too much, you're fucked.
Because you'd stop doing the art probably.
Of course I would. Of course I would. Well, wait there. Actually, if I keep doing the art and I find out that I really want to be I'm just riffing. I want to be an artist, but wait there. Then I have to leave Sanctus, and then what will I do for money? Because I've got a flat. You're done. It's dead. It's dead. Stop doing it. I won't even pick up a paintbrush. Pointless. It's like it's dead. Instead, you know what? I'm in Sanctus. Let's read a business book. Come here. I literally couldn't care less about business books. Not any interest at all. But if I think about it too much, I'm just going to revert to what's safe, like what's really low risk, probably.
And the other thing that scared me, I don't know if it's the same for you, I love new things. It's part of like my personality. And yeah, part of me was a doubt of, yes, I'm excited about, let's use the example, art at the minute, but will that last? Where will that go? Will I, let's say I'm not excited about Sanctus, so I'm going to stop that, but I'm going to go in on art. And then 2 weeks later, be like, oh, I'm not excited about art anymore. I guess my question to you is, would that be a fail? Do you feel the same? Is that failure? Is that?
Well, it's funny, because the lads have started ripping me, and like a few people who know me will take the piss out of me every now and again for being like the king of fads. Like I love a fad, it's boxing, rowing, art, poetry. Just love a fad. I'll give anything a try. I genuinely will.
No, but they're not fads. They're sports. But
often, like for example, boxing. I told all my mates I was going to do a white collar boxing fight. Right? I went to boxing a few times, did sparring, got banged basically, and then never went back. Like, so there's been loads of stuff in my life. I've started, I've got a cupboard full of sports gear, play it once, buy all the gear and never play again. But there have been certain things that have become real pillars in my life, like walking, hiking, the outdoors, all that sort of stuff.
Writing, yeah.
Yeah, right, exactly. And if I'd have not just taken a risk and tried them and played around, then, who knows? So I don't think it's a failed endeavour, because you pull on a thread and you see where it's going to go, and it just takes you to places, doesn't it? So no, I don't think it's ever a waste of time, really, because it's not a creative practice like that, or something where you're on your edge or you're expressing yourself. It's not avoidance. Like there's stuff that I've done before where I'm numbing, I'm disassociating. I'm watching Vampire Diaries, or I'm watching just shit, or I'm scrolling on Netflix. I'm not there. There's no, it's evoking zero part of me, hardly. I'm there in body. But if I'm painting or I'm journaling or I'm rowing, it's like I'm there, I'm with it. So I just think it's worth it for that, because I'm moving somewhere. It's like the way I got my book deal, I spent a few months in the evenings writing a book that I have not got a book deal for. It's a completely different book. It was a completely different book. But I was doing it in the evenings because I was interested. I was like, I think this is a good idea. Pitched it, got told, no, you're not, no one will, you're not a big enough name for anyone to care about this. I was like, yeah, fair enough. 2 weeks later, I get a call from her colleague being like, oh, actually, I got this other opportunity for a different book, which in the end is way more specific and actually way more related. So, but I don't think if I'd have done that book deal would have happened. So, I think there's such a power in just playing, basically. It's like going on a little skirmish. You go there, come back, go off, and I think that's a really good thing to do. At the moment, I'm into painting. I just got a feeling if I just keep painting, I just keep playing around with it, I'll just learn something from it. I don't know what. I have no idea what. It's something, I just think something will come of it.
That makes it. Wow, yeah. Honestly, that's nailed me, that one. I'm honestly that's floored me. The book
What?
deal.
Yeah.
You've nailed me because the book deal. I forgot you were writing. I forgot
Yeah.
You were writing your own fiction.
Yeah. I was. Yeah.
Oh my God, I forgot
Yeah.
about that. And then you started sharing. Oh yeah, and you started sharing snippets with me. I remember that was really personal. Then you
Yeah.
started sharing snippets in your newsletter, and then wow, and now you've got a book that's completely different, but
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
makes it feel less scary. Weirdly, you were just playing around, and then that did allow something to emerge.
Again, it's if you've got the outcome attached to it, you fucked again, because it's like, sorry, I keep swearing, but it just nails you, because if I was tied to the outcome too much, again, just wouldn't have done it, because the risk then is just too high, isn't it? It's just too high. It's like, if I was so tied to the outcome of getting a book deal initially, I just kind of probably wouldn't have done it, because I'm just like, well, if I don't get it, then I'm not a good writer. That's where I probably would have gone. But instead, I was just like, you know what? Like, I started off, I was like, oh, I really want to write up all my journal entries. So I just started writing them up. And then I was like, oh, like, yeah, I've got this idea for this fiction book of like a guy called Jack, which was just me. You know, it's like, so then I just started playing around with that.
But how come? I'm aware of time, but how come with the art, you're not attached too much to the outcome, but you enjoy it? How come on the other side with Sanctus, there's parts of it that maybe you're not that excited about, but it sounds like you are tied to an outcome there? Which, yeah.
Well, I mean, the ultimate state for me with Sanctus would be to not be, to be honest, because I think when we first started it, mate, I honestly don't think I honestly wasn't tied to an outcome. I swear. And people will listen to that and be like, bollocks, because why would you start a business then? Like, why would you raise money? Because we needed it to keep going. It was literally like, whatever. It was just like, mission. This has to exist. I don't care. There was just no, I have to do this. I honestly, mate, I honestly don't think I was attached to an outcome. I didn't even think. It was just pure instinct, and that for me would be the perfect state.
I feel like we're there now. I feel like that about Sanctus. I mean more about you, like your outcome within Sanctus. You still feel tied to. So on one side, it feels playful, but then I could still sense a feeling of tension, basically, of wanting it to be clear. I don't know. Like there is an outcome that you're looking for with Sanctus almost, which is clean cut. I definitely want to be there, or I definitely don't, or something like that, which then makes it feel less playful, less.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Mate, I think it's and these are the stories in my head. It's the, we have to have clear roles. People have to be accountable for certain things. Like, I need to have a role profile. All that, like, it needs to be really clear, like, what I do and what I don't do. So it's that's what then I'm like, oh, I need certainty in my role at Sanctus. That's what I then go to. It's like, oh, I need certainty because other people want me to have it, or it's needed. If it was up to me, I don't want a role profile. It's just I'm just the founder. It's just like, I just kind of like get used to, like, I'm just me and that's it. But it's the structures, I suppose, and the maturity of a business that possibly feels limiting, actually, which is definitely my fear.
I can imagine a lot of people have. There's the kind of what I do and then what I enjoy, or and there feels like I'm either an artist or I work at Sanctus. I'm just asking the question: is there an in between, something that's a little
I hope
bit
so.
less? Yeah,
I hope so. That's what I want. Like, the dream for me is that I don't flip between states. It's just I just wake up and I'm just there. And like, oh, I'll do a bit of work, or I've got a meeting. It's just like, that's the dream. You know, I'm just flowing through my day. Like that's, then again, I'm not saying there won't be time, like things that I don't enjoy. I'm not trying to paint this like happy, blissful utopia. It's not that, but there's, yeah, that's what I hope for, really. That's where I'd love to get to. But not get to. I'd love to be. You know, that's how I'd love to be. Yeah, and I suppose, yeah, and still I'm like, God, is that possible? Is that possible? I believe it is. I don't know, maybe it's because it's not talked about in this way that often, or or other founders or other people don't talk about it publicly. So it's hard because it just feels like such a new path. It feels very unknown, like it feels like a new path.
Yeah, you said that in your newsletter. Like, doesn't feel like there's a role model for stopping. I think you quoted Johnny Wilkinson, the Johnny Wilkinson podcast, that one that we've listened to, is the one where it's felt there's something in what he was saying that feels quite unique at the minute in terms of a message.
Yeah, I think so. I look around and I don't know. I've got people, you know, in the startup world or the business world that I look up to. I'm like, you're class at what you do. Like, you are sick. Like, but and I think like Jason and Chris are role models, definitely for me. But there's just not many. Like genuinely, like that Johnny Wilkinson podcast, I just always reference it because it's one of the few conventionally successful people speaking and being in a way that I admire, really. I liked that.
but maybe, you know how you said earlier, people may ask you on panels and stuff, what should I do? And you're just a bit like, look, the opposite. Maybe it's the same where you're at, where we're at, is like, yes, Johnny's sharing his experience, to be fair. So it is.
Yeah, he's sharing experience.
That's why he's not telling us what to do.
That's why the podcast is good, because he's not telling us what to do. Jake and the other bloke are constantly trying to ask him, how do I do that? And he's constantly saying,
that's not the question.
That's not the question. He's constantly saying that. That's why I'm like, this guy gets it. So that's why I liked it. You know, because I always thought about that podcast loads. It's like the guy's like, are you happy? And he actually, it's funny, I always think about it because he actually says, yeah, I am. And I just think if someone asked me that question, I'd just be like, sometimes.
But didn't he go back to it? He didn't answer it fully. Like, yeah, he actually tried to get them to change the question. I don't think they fully could.
It's like such a stupid question. Are you happy? Like,
yeah, but I think it's still so new. I think like me and you, this conversation for me, I'm on the edge of I think I know what I'm learning, and it's kind of, I feel like I'm so on the edge of learning about myself and what feels good and about this stuff, and there isn't a path. So yeah, mate, I've loved this chat again. I'm aware of time. I want to keep doing these to like 45 minutes, and this feels like, as you put in your newsletter, it's like part 2 of stepping down the upper like that.
Yeah.
I wondered, I feel like part 3 might be about a bit more about today and maybe practically, I guess, what it was like bringing in someone new to help you with this transition and us with this transition. I just wondered if there's anything else like you've left unsaid at this, like that you want to kind of, that you still feel like you're holding a little bit, or...
I do think it'd be, I do think that part 3 would be a good one, and I'm going to write a part 3 as well, because I feel like I've got a part 3 in me. I do think there's just the business. I think the business story has to be told as well, because like I've taken in telling my story, obviously I've made it about me. I've been like, look, this was my experience, but there's a whole Sanctus experience, if you take Sanctus as a separate entity to me, of how Sanctus felt, right? Like all our employees, all of that, and that was a massive part. Practicalities of, you know, we've raised money this year, like it's been a tough year for everyone, Corona, all that stuff.
I'd imagine that it's part 3. How do you hire a CEO? A news, like, how did we do it? That for me, I would love to go back
Mate,
to like.
I think
do you remember like how we met? And yeah, go on.
I think it's more. I think it's how. I think it's the 2020 Sanctus story. It's like, how do you start off the year hemorrhaging cash, turn it around and get it back to profitable, then raise cash. Oh, mate, all of that. Because it's not just hiring the CEO, like, because there's no way, I don't think there's any way we'd have hired Chris without that first bit. That first bit was crucial. Or else we were just a broken business.
True. But I also think it's like chicken and egg, because yes, we did that bit, but I honestly think we'd have been profitable with no one that wanted to be CEO. And I think the company would have just quickly.
Yeah, I agree with that as well. Yeah.
This year could have been so different in many ways. So maybe we just talk about 2020 and how it's been for us and how this has happened practically. Let's definitely do that next time.
I think that's the part 3.
Cool. Mate, we're into a bit of a series here. I don't know, we've fallen into a series.
Yeah, we have actually, haven't we? Yeah. Mate, to be honest, this is selfishly, this is what I've always wanted Talking Business to be. Just talking business, isn't it? I've honestly just always, I love the guests and stuff, so I think, I'd love you to keep doing that. But yeah, I've selfishly always just wanted to talk business.
I just go with what feels good at the minute, so I'm sticking to continue doing
this. Well, you're deeply involved in the present moment, aren't you?
Deeply engaged, as Johnny would say. Right, let's leave it there for this week, and let's come back to it next week.
Yeah, fantastic.
Boom. And that's it. There we go. Another great conversation with JMO. I always feel like even though we know each other so well and we speak a lot every day, I still feel like doing it like this is just different. I feel like I learn something new from talking to him and actually having the space to listen. So I hope that was valuable. Hope you enjoyed it. And as we said, I think we've accidentally stumbled on recording a series here. So part 3, I think we're going to start talking about 2020, this year, what's happened, and how we went about, how it happened, how we hired a CEO, and how this change has come about. So part 3's coming. We're going to record that next week, and I'll upload it here on YouTube as well. So that's it for this week. See you next week, and see you then. Boom.